ഭാര്യയോട് കിടക്കണം.
Last I have a busy schedule. I never take an appointment that my wife doesn't agree to.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Jane Stevens. So for those of you who don't know me, welcome. We are going to be talking about leases today. We do cover leases in our new agent orientation, which we offer on Mondays and Wednesdays, but I know a lot of you guys are doing leases. It's always a topic that people like to discuss. There's always situations that come up. There are always questions that come up. So I thought I would offer this separately from the new agent orientation if you're not new and you would like a refresher. So I'm just showing you guys the calendar here that we've just put together. So it is September 1st. So this is our new training calendar for the month. So it's not something that I usually share. It's usually on the workplace channel itself, on the training channel, but I thought I would actually include it in the presentation because we do have some speakers coming up this month, which I'm really excited about. So I just wanted to highlight those for you guys. So on Thursday at 11 a.m. this week, we have a stager, Anya, she's with Sunset Hill Staging. Then the following week, we have David Woodhouse, who is our in-house lawyer. So he's going to be answering all of your legal questions. Then, of course, we have Mahir coming back. He's going to be talking about Zolo mortgages, just as a reminder that Zolo mortgages exists. So it is a brand new venture. And if you guys have clients that are looking for mortgages, please use Zolo mortgages. Mahir will be able to take good care of them. And then, of course, at the end of the month there on Thursday, we do a customer service webinar as well. And oftentimes some of the other growth managers join me. So I hope that will be the case this month as well. So lots happening this month. We're going to be hopefully getting back into the swing of things now that summer, whatever we had of it is over. So I'm looking forward to hosting these training sessions with you guys. And of course, if you have any suggestions for future training sessions, please let me know. I love the ideas. So yeah, definitely keep me posted if there's something in particular that you want to see, or maybe something you're struggling with. I know in the past, for example, we've done TREB training, we've done web forms. So we really try to facilitate those for you guys if that's what you're needing support in. So also, just a quick note that you can find these previously recorded webinars on the GM channel on YouTube. So those links are in the workplace group under the training channel. So if you can't find them, search in that group or reach out to me, Jane Stevens, or your growth manager. Awesome. Let's jump in. Let's talk about leases today. So again, definitely feel free to chat with me if you have questions, if you have situations that come up. Definitely let's brainstorm, let's come up with some solutions so that you can get these offers accepted. So in leases, first of all, we're going to talk about why should we even do leases? So obviously, if you're brand new to Zolo, you are required to do 5 leases before those buyer leads get turned on. And that's specifically for brand new agents. So it really gets you comfortable with the paperwork before you do jump into the world of buyer leads, but also very seasoned agents here at Zolo still keep their leases on. It definitely, once you have a system in place, which we'll talk about because that's really super important so that you can do as many of these lease deals as possible in 1 month, you know, that obviously will generate some cash flow for you. It's also going to, you know, generate a lot of leads in your CRM. So you'll be able to update your activity with all of those leads within your CRM. And that activity, of course, is going to generate more leads. The Zolo bot is watching your activity, is making sure that your call rate, your showing rate, your deal rate is up there. So if you are entering all of those activities, you're active with leads, then it will reward you with buyer leads when you have those turned on. So it also definitely grows your network of potential buyers. In real estate, it's a long game that we play here, right? So somebody might be ready right now to rent a property, but hopefully in a year or two, they will be first-time home buyers. And if you did a great job with their lease and you stayed in touch, that's the key. Definitely you want to be following up with people, you know, maybe a month after they've moved in, maybe a year after, just finding out where they're at, how things are going, so that when they're ready to buy, they think of you. So it definitely grows your network of potential buyers. And as I already said, if you're brand new to real estate, doing leases definitely familiarizes yourself with the real estate paperwork. I actually like to say with leases, you're really wearing all of the hats in real estate, right? You are essentially the mortgage broker, right? Who in a buyer transaction would tell you what they're pre-approved for. You're kind of playing that role because you're asking pre-qualifying questions and you're the one determining whether or not they're qualified. So then, of course, you also take over the role of realtor. You take them out on showings, you write the paperwork. But then at the end of the transaction, you're, again, sort of wearing that lawyer hat, if you will, right? You're making sure everything closes properly and on time. And, you know, you're showing up with the keys, right? If you can, ideally, right? Meeting with the tenant and the landlord at the property to exchange keys and post-dated checks. So just again, making sure that everything runs smoothly. So it is quite involved. There is a lot of work involved, but if, again, you have a really good system in place, you're able to execute these quite quickly. And that's the whole goal. So we don't want to be spending months and months and months with one particular lease lead. You know, we do that with buyers because obviously buyers take a little bit longer to make decisions. You know, their timing might not be right or whatever the situation is. But with leases, they're usually motivated. They need to find something at the end of the month or at the end of the following month. So it is possible to do quite a few of these quite quickly. All right. So this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to specifically be talking about contacting the lead and pre-qualifying them. So this is going to be questions that you're going to ask, and based on their answers, you're going to decide whether or not you're going to work with this particular lead, right? If they're qualified, great, you can work with them. If they're not, you still want to be providing excellent customer service. And then maybe pointing them in the right direction. Maybe they, you know, maybe you're giving them the listing agent's information, or maybe you're referring them to Kijiji or Facebook Marketplace, where oftentimes the landlord is posting their own rental properties, and then their criteria is a little bit less. So, you know, anytime a realtor is involved, typically landlords want AAA tenants, and you can explain that to your clients. It means they need to have a certain credit score, a certain income. So if they fall below that, then it's in their best interest to go directly to the landlords who are posting on Kijiji or Facebook Marketplace. So there you go. Definitely pointing them in the right direction if you can't help them yourself. So always, always, always providing excellent customer service. We'll talk about the rental application. We'll talk about showing properties. We'll talk about preparing the offer to lease. And then, of course, we'll be talking about closing the transaction. So let's jump in and talk about pre-qualifying. All right. Actually, yeah. So you're going to start pre-qualifying during that initial conversation. So if you get a phone call and it's a lease lead, you don't recognize that number on your phone, it's not already in your contact list, just assume it's a lease. a lead, assume it's a lead, and answer your phone professionally, right? So, hello, Jane speaking, and then proceed with the call from there. So, you don't want to be answering, hesitating, not sure, like, who is this? Just assume it's a lead, right? Answering your phone professionally. And then oftentimes people will tell you what it is that they're looking for, right? They might very well say, I just saw this property on Zolo.ca. It's 123 Main Street. Can you tell me when the possession date is, right? So hopefully when you are taking these calls, ideally you're in front of your computer, you do have Treb open so that you can look up the information, but oftentimes that's not the case. Sometimes we're running around, sometimes we're doing showings, whatever the situation is. So in that case, just let them know that you'll call them back in an hour or whatever it is so that you can pull up the information and you can give them the answers to their questions. So definitely if you need to call them back, making sure that you are calling them back within that hour, if that's the expectation that you set. But again, if you are in front of your computer, you're ready to take these calls, call comes in, then definitely provide them with the information, right? Let them know it's available September 1st. When is it that you're looking to move, right? Because really what you want to do is you want to have a conversation. You want to engage with the lead. Oftentimes they will give you a lot of information up front about what they're looking for, but you definitely want to dive in a little bit deeper. And then a good way to transition the call into the pre-qualifying questions is to ask them if they know the process, right? Have they rented before, or has it been a long time since they've rented? Whatever the situation is, and really regardless of their answer, even if they say, oh yeah, no, we're totally familiar with the process, still carry on and educate them on the process, right? Great, I'm glad that you're familiar with the process. Definitely, as you know, the landlords are gonna wanna see a credit score. Do you have that already downloaded? Do you know if your credit score is above 650? The landlord is also gonna wanna see some sort of proof of income. Do you have an employment letter? Do you have pay stubs? Is there something that you can show that the rent isn't going to be more than 30% of your income, right? So that's kind of how you're asking these questions and you're waiting for these answers, and hopefully they're actually disclosing the information, right? So for example, you're hoping that they say, yeah, no problem, our credit score is in the 700s. Great, right? Hopefully their employment hasn't been interrupted due to COVID. Hopefully, they haven't been on CERB for the last several months, and they can prove that they do have consistent income coming in so that, as I said, you can show that to the landlord, right? So really explaining the process because that way you can get information from them and you can decide whether or not you're going to proceed with showing them properties. Definitely also asking them about their timeline, because you don't want to be showing somebody properties and they haven't even given notice to their landlord yet. So they're at least 2 months out and you're showing them properties that are available, mid-September or October 1st, right? So definitely matching your efforts to their timeline. So of course you want to be closing that conversation with hopefully a conversion. So hopefully you're converting them to a showing. So at the end of that conversation, you can say, when would you like to see some properties, right? Hopefully they say Saturday at 1, perfect, I'll schedule those appointments and send you confirmation. So after these calls, you definitely want to be following up with an email to recap everything. But before I get into that, let's talk about a similar call, which are the outbound calls. So if you do miss a call, the Zolo bot does help us. So if you miss a call because again, you're out doing showings or whatever the situation is, the Zolo bot will send a message saying, sorry, we missed you. When's a good time to call? So if that's the case, hopefully they reply saying, any time is good, and you can get back to them as quickly as possible. So in that situation, obviously you want to be calling back, making sure that you're speaking to the lead that inquired about the property, and then introducing yourself from Zolo.ca. I find that if you say Zolo Realty, not as many people are familiar with that as they are with the actual website. So introduce yourself as an agent with Zolo.ca, and then just remind them, I see that you inquired about 123 Main Street. How can I help you? Have that conversation, and then end that conversation with when would you like to see the property? So we were converting that call to a showing. So let's dive in. Let's talk about these pre-qualifying questions before we get to that follow-up email, because this is really important. This is how you are going to determine whether or not you're going to work with them. And this is also the system that you want to have in place so that you can get these deals done as quickly as possible. I have seen agents here do 5, 10, I think the most that I've seen is 13 leases in a month. So definitely it's possible to get quite a bit of business doing leases. So it does require a lot of work, but if you have a system in place, you're not running around with people who aren't qualified, right? So in order to get 5 or 10 or more lease leads done in a month, then you definitely want to be making sure that they're qualified, that you're spending time with qualified leads. So of course you start off with that conversation, and I already talked about some pre-qualifying questions, and really make the landlord the bad guy. It's the landlord who wants to see the credit score. It's not you. So if people get defensive, I kind of always say, if people get defensive, it's probably because they're not qualified. If they don't want to share that information, it's probably that they're not qualified. So if they don't want to provide information, that's probably going to be your first clue to maybe point them in the direction of the listing agent or Kijiji or Facebook Marketplace. Again, you want them to have a good customer service experience with Zolo. So if you've decided you can't help them for whatever reason, then just refer them on, point them in the right direction. But if you get answers to these questions, and again, they say, yeah, no problem, our credit score is in the 700s, and yes, you know, between my wife and I, or my husband and I, we're making, you know, $10,000 a month, and we're looking at this property that's, you know, currently being offered for $3,000. Great, right? So you know that you have qualified tenants. So I do know that there are some agents who require documentation from them to verify that before they even meet with anybody, before they take them out on showings. And from the tenant's perspective, I can understand how that might be a little bit invasive. They haven't even met you yet. They haven't even found a property that they want. So, I mean, really, that's why it's so important to ask these questions and really get a feel for them, right? You know, if your gut is telling you that it sounds like a lie, it's too good to be true, or maybe it just sounds fishy, then again, point them in the right direction. But really, you want to be working with people who, you know, don't have a problem telling you all of the information. And like I said, after that call, you can follow up with an email and then letting them know what the documents are without really requiring them to fill out the rental application or provide all the documentation before they've even met you, right? In some cases, you may want the rental application back, but again, typically, you want to follow up with that email and you can expect to get that paperwork later. But at least you know the answers to those questions. You know that they're qualified, that you know their credit score, you know their income because you've asked. So that follow-up email is just basically going to reiterate your conversation that you had with them over the phone. It's going to attach the rental application, and then it just provides that list of documents that you've already talked about just so that they have a record of it. Also very key is that in your email, you're going to obviously have your email signature. So, you know, it's not very often that people speak to a realtor and then enter in their information right away into their phone. So this way, if you send the email, then they're going to have all of your contact information right there, and they'll easily be able to reply. So in addition to the email that you're going to send them with the rental application and the list of documents, you also want to be setting them up on a prospect search or collab within Treb so that they're getting notified of new listings as they become available. Again, that's going to make it really easy for them to simply hit reply and let you know what, we liked property number 1, 2, and 3. Can we see it on Saturday at 1, right? So making it really easy for them to reply and for you to schedule those showings. So once they do request to see a few properties, if they are in a little bit of a different situation, I would say, you know, the ideal situation is usually, you know, mom, dad, and kids. But if you have roommates, or if you have, you know, 2 families wanting to share, or if you have, you know, a number of people, mom, dad, the in-laws, and the kids, and the aunt, then, you know, those are situations that are a little bit trickier. So you want to take the extra step and you want to be calling the listing agent and asking the listing agent if the landlord will consider X amount of people, or if the landlord will consider newcomers to Canada who don't have, you know, the employment history here or the credit history here, but maybe they have additional deposit. So whatever the situation is, if it's not, you know, a straightforward situation, it's a little bit unique, then definitely call the listing agent to find out if that's something the landlord would consider. And if not, great, don't waste your time showing them that house because they're never going to get it, right? So really taking that extra step, again, just to have a system that is so dialed in that you're not wasting any time. Obviously, of course, once you take them out on showings, you want to make sure that you're letting them know you're not just there to open doors, you're actually there to help them find something and write up the offers. So ask for the business, ask for it after each property, ask them what they thought, you know, property number 1, ask them how property number 2 compares to property number 1. And then by the end of 3 to 4 properties that you've shown them, hopefully, you know, over the course of one afternoon, hopefully they let you know what, we really liked property number 1. Great, send me the rental application with all your paperwork and I'll prepare the offer. So again, this is something that you may want to just go back to that email and really saying, you know, specifying the importance of them having these documents prepared. Yes, you've told them what they need, but really make sure that they do have it ready, right? Even if they're not going to send it to you right away, do have it ready, because when you do go out and you see and there's something that they like, if it takes them 2 days to gather their employment letter and all of this stuff, the property's going to be gone and you're going to have to start from square one. So definitely make sure that they have all of their paperwork at least in their possession so that they can quickly send it to you without any sort of delay, so that you can go ahead, prepare the offer, and then win the deal, right? So that's going to be your system that you want to have in place. So really important to be showing them 3 to 4 properties over the course of 1 to 2 days. Sometimes lease leads will get back to you with the list of 10 properties that they want to see. And if that's the case, just let them know nicely that if they take a look at 10 properties in 1 day, it's all going to start looking the same, right? So ask them to pick their top 3 or 4 so that you're really showing them what it is that they're most interested in. And again, not wasting time. All right. So this is the same thing. So just a few more pre-qualifying questions, maybe worded a little bit differently. But yeah, again, starting that conversation with whether or not they're familiar with the process, letting them know that it's the landlord who wants to see the credit score and employment letter, asking them if they have that, asking them if they know what it is. And then again, just educating them on the fact that landlords are going to want to see a credit score of over 650 and rent that is no more than 30% of their income, right? And then a couple of ways to ask about their situation, their living situation, is simply to ask them, where are you living now? When is your lease up? Have you given notice? When are you looking to move, and who will be living with you? So you understand what their situation is, and you can ask the listing agent if necessary, if that's something the landlord will consider. All right, so this is the sample email that you can use to follow up with your leads after you've had that initial conversation with them. So again, it's attaching the rental application, and then you can say something, I mean, really short and sweet, or as long-winded as you'd like. This is something I use. I've tweaked it a little bit over time, but you know, it just basically says, thank you for your interest in rental properties. The properties you inquired about are available, or you know, I'll be scheduling them on Saturday at 1 and send you confirmation as soon as I have that. And then of course, letting them know I'm attaching the rental application. And then if we find a property you like, I can assist you with preparing the offer. And at that time, landlords will typically request, and then you can list out credit report, proof of income, and then you can put in brackets letter of employment or pay stubs, and their photo ID, which you need to obviously verify their identification. And then as soon as the offer is accepted, you'll also need your deposit ready. That's a nice thing to give them the heads up about. Just if they're not familiar with the process, you don't want it to be a surprise that, you know, they suddenly need $5,000 on a $2,500 rental. So let me know if you have questions. I look forward to hearing from you and helping you with your home search. So again, this is a short and sweet one. I know other agents have expanded on this and maybe provided links to where they can go to obtain their credit report. So that's something you might want to include, but again, short and sweet does the trick as well. And just have this as a template that you can copy and paste, and it's a really easy thing to send out after each and every single conversation that you're having with these leads. So hope that helps. Let's talk about the rental application. So the rental application is obviously going to come from your tenant. It includes all of their personal information. So that's something that they're going to provide to you, you know, their previous, you know, employment, their previous, you know, rental history. So they are going to complete that and send it to you either, you know, after the initial showings or when they're ready to actually submit an offer, but just make sure that they're representing themselves in the best possible way. So most importantly, I would say here on the rental application is that it asks them for income. And sometimes people might say their net income as opposed to their gross income. They may leave out the fact that they're also receiving child support or a child tax benefit, whatever the situation is. So really ask them for all of their sources of income, and then maybe, you know, copy type this rental application when you are in web forms so that, you know, it's all nicely laid out and it accurately represents them, right? So the more income you can show for them, the better. So just make sure that you're asking those questions so that they're not leaving anything out. All right. So let's talk about showing properties, which obviously right now we are showing things. Oops, I don't know what just happened here. You know, we're showing properties safely, right? So you want to be showing up with masks and with gloves, you know, hand sanitizer. Sometimes some properties will have these things available for you at the property, but not always. So make sure that you come prepared. You know, you're the professional. You want to show up with all of the safety gear and provide that to them if necessary. So make sure that you're doing that. If you're brand new to real estate, then just a simple reminder here that obviously if you're booking appointments, you can do it in one of two ways. You can either call the listing brokerage or you can book it online. So if you're looking up the property in Treb, for example, pull up the MLS listing and up at the top, you'll see links where you can go ahead and book the online appointment. At some point you will receive an email reply with the lockbox code. And I do just like to remind everybody, because believe it or not, we have we've had issues with this in the past, but not recently, which is good. You want to make sure you're not sharing the lockbox code with clients. You must attend all of your showings and cancel if you're not able to make it. You don't want to have a complaint against you. It's just really simple rules to follow. So just a reminder there. All right. So the CRM I'm not really talking about today, other than to say, showings, once you have taken the client out on showings, go ahead and enter that into the CRM. Make sure you're doing it after you've taken them out on showings, just because then they're going to get an automatic text message from the system saying, how do you rate your Zolo agent? So you just want to make sure that, it's not being sent prematurely. They're getting annoyed and then they're giving you a low rating, when you deserve a way better rating, right? So make sure you're entering that after you've taken them out on showings. All right. Okay, so let's talk about preparing the offer. And I do have some screenshots here, but first of all, I'm just going to explain what is coming from each side. So the rental application with the supporting documents, obviously that's coming from your client, from the potential tenant. And then on your end, you're going to be preparing the agreement to lease with the attached schedules. So Schedule A is going to be already filled out for you in web forms. Actually, all of these documents will be in web forms. So you don't need to remember what you need for a lease transaction, but you should, of course, know what you need, right? So the rental application and the documents are going to come from your client, and then you're going to be preparing the agreement to lease with the attached Schedule A, which, as I said, is already auto-populated for you. And then the Schedule B is attached to the listing, if there is one. Not every listing brokerage has a Schedule B for leases, because typically that talks about the deposit and whether or not it's going to bear interest. So again, some listing brokerages don't use that for leases. So if it's not there, it's probably okay. If you want to reach out to the listing agent just to make sure, you can do so. But otherwise, agreement to lease with your Schedule A is all you're going to need to prepare, along with the confirmation of co-op. So those documents right there are going to form your offer. And what I usually like to do is I like to save them as two separate PDFs. So I'll have the rental application with the supporting documents saved as one PDF, and then I'll have the agreement to lease with the Schedule A and the confirmation of co-op as another PDF. So that's the offer, right? That way it makes it really easy for the listing agent to just send the offer for signature, and just show the rental application and supporting documents to the landlord. So we want to be easy to work with. So, presenting this properly and saving it as two separate PDFs is probably the easiest way to do this. Between you and your client, you definitely need that tenant's representation agreement and working with a realtor. That needs to be completed at the time of writing the offer or before. So this actually gives you authorization to go ahead and write that agreement to lease. So you definitely need that in place. I'm going to mention quickly here, FinTrack. You don't usually need to worry about this, but if you do receive over $10,000 as the deposit, so in other words, maybe they're paying 6 months up front, they're paying the first and last 5 months, then that deposit is more than $10,000. So in that case, you'll have to complete a FinTrack form, but that's not usually the case, so don't worry about it. Really what you should focus on once the offer has been accepted is to complete the residential tenancy agreement. And obviously this is something that is done between the landlord and the tenant. It reiterates all of the accepted terms of the agreement to lease. That's why I personally like to do it after the agreement has been accepted, so that you aren't having to revise this document as well. Also, obviously, the listing agent is probably the one who should be completing this form. But again, just to maybe offer this in your offer presentation to the listing agent, offering to prepare this again shows that you're going to be easy to work with. And also in my experience and in speaking to other realtors, I know that this is true. Listing agents don't complete these very quickly or at all, and then you're having to chase it down. It's just easier to do it yourself. So the residential tenancy agreement is something you should complete after the offer has been accepted. All right, so let's jump into web forms. So web forms, you can find it on Treb's homepage. You can also find it under MLS services. And then of course you can find it from the MLS listing itself. I have a question coming in. Okay, Jennifer, thanks for your question. Leads do not feel comfortable to provide the documents even after 2 to 3 showings. Should I let them go? Yeah. Okay, so that's a great question. If they're not wanting to provide documentation, is it maybe just because they haven't found a property yet? Definitely talk to them about, I mean, really they should be disclosing the information at some point, but maybe it's just the fact that they haven't found something yet. So maybe just have a conversation with them about what it is that they're looking for. If you've done 2 to 3 showings, maybe take them out on another round and hopefully they find what it is that they're looking for, and then they provide you with the documentation. I do know, tenants are hesitant to provide that before they've actually found something. So I'm going to go ahead and assume here that that's probably what's going on, that they just haven't found what they're looking for. But so do another round, and if they're not still finding what they like, or they're still not providing you with the information, then maybe in that case you might want to refer them on to the listing agent. So if they're not going to work with you, it's going to be difficult for you to work with them. So maybe give it one more go, and hopefully you find them something they like so that they can go ahead and provide those documents to you. So hopefully that answers your question there. All right, so let's talk about web forms and where you can find it. And as I said, I do recommend going to web forms directly from the MLS listing, simply because if you do click on this, it's going to auto-populate some of this information. So you won't have to type in the address, you won't have to type in the seller's name. So it does a little bit of work for you. So if you click on web forms from the MLS listing, it will take you directly to web forms, which is hopefully what you guys are familiar with. So take a look at the dashboard. If you are coming directly from the MLS listing, you won't have to create a transaction. It'll take you right to this dialog box. And I'll just mention this now, the deals department wants us to name our transactions using the address of the property. But I don't remember clients based on their address. I remember clients based on their name. So I'll put in brackets the name of the client. So give the deals department what they want, but maybe, just for your own sort of tracking purposes, if you have to go back in time and find, so-and-so's transaction, you don't have to also remember their address. So just save it as the address with the client's name. And then of course, from the drop-down menu, you have some options. You want to be selecting, in this case, offer lease. So it's Zolo residential offer lease. That's going to auto-populate all of those documents that I previously showed you. So again, you're not going to have to remember to add each of those forms. It is already done for you. So just all you have to do is select the template, and that will auto-populate. And then of course, as I said, if you are coming from the Treb listing, that MLS number will be inserted here automatically, and some information will be pulled into your forms automatically. So you can go ahead at that point and just press on create, and that is going to bring you to the forms. So your rental application is there. So if you do need to copy type it, and if you need to just present them in a better way, or maybe just make it cleaner, nicer, easier to read, then you have the rental application as part of your forms. The offer summary document is not required for leases, but if the listing agent asks for it, fine, prepare it, give it to them, but it's really only meant for purchases. But again, if they ask for it, it's already in your template kit, just to make it easy for you if they do require it. Agreement to lease and confirmation of co-op, that's going to be your offer, and then the tenant representation agreement and working with a realtor, that's between you and the client. So you need all of these forms signed obviously by your client, but the only thing that you're going to send to the listing agent when you present the offer is the rental application with the supporting documents, and then separately the agreement to lease and confirmation of co-op. If they do require an offer summary document, then sure, throw that on there as a cover page and merge that all as to one PDF. All right, so this is how you're going to fill in the agreement to lease. There are 10 paragraphs that are all pretty straightforward, unless it's your very first time completing an offer. I know it takes a little bit of a while to get used to, but it is 10 paragraphs, and really it's fill in the blank. So starting from the top, obviously you want to be dating the agreement to lease, today's date or tomorrow's if you know that's when you're going to be submitting it, but you're going to put in the tenant's name. The landlord's name should already be auto-populated from MLS, and then so will the premises, so will the address, right? So you'll have the address there, and then you'll go ahead and fill in the rest, right? So term of the lease is going to be 1 year, starting September 1st, September 15th, whatever it is. You're going to state the rent. Definitely make sure that your clients know not to offer less the lease market is very competitive right now. I mean, unless of course you're in downtown Toronto and you're looking at condos, that's a different story. But I think for most of us, the rental market is very competitive. So if you know, if their budget is $2,500, you don't want to be showing them properties that are listed for $2,800, right? So in fact, they may even want to offer $50 or $100 more over and above the listed price, just because again, there may be other offers. So payable on the first day of each month, deposit and prepaid rent. So as you can see, these are all the paragraphs that need to be completed. I do have a cheat sheet here that I can share with you. So this is basically a summary of the 10 paragraphs that need to be completed. So paragraph 4, where we left off on that last screen, basically is asking you how the tenant is going to deliver the deposit. And you have 3 options. There's a drop-down menu. You can either select upon acceptance, which means within 24 hours of the offer being accepted, your client needs to deliver the deposit to the listing brokerage, right? Alternatively, you can ask them to go to the bank, get a bank draft, send you a copy of it, and then maybe you're sending that to the listing agent with your offer. You're sending a picture of the bank draft. So in that case, you would select herewith, or maybe they need to wire transfer the funds from another account, and that's the easiest way for them. So in that case, you've got a third option, which states as otherwise described in this agreement. So if you do select that option, make sure you are describing how they are going to deliver the deposit in the Schedule A, which is attached to this offer. Obviously, it needs to be a bank draft. It can't be just a regular check. It needs to be payable to the listing brokerage. So in that blank there, you wouldn't say listing brokerage, you would say Remax or Royal LePage. And then you would say in the amount of $4,000 against first and last month's rent, if in fact the rent is $2,000. If you're needing to prorate the rent, there's a little cheat sheet here as well. Make sure that you're not just taking the rent and dividing it by 30 days. Make sure you're calculating an accurate daily rate. So in other words, multiplying the rent by 12 months and then dividing that by 365 days. So that's going to give you a daily rate if they want possession, say 7 days before the first. So you do have room in paragraph 4 to specify that. So instead of first and last month's rent, you might say 7 days plus first and last month's rent. Also, if they're deciding to offer a little bit more of a deposit, which you can definitely recommend, if again, you know it's going to be competitive, and maybe in that case, you're offering first and last 3 months rent, 5 months rent, whatever it's going to be, right? All right, let's see. I've got some questions coming in. For the deposit, the tenant delivers to the listing brokerage. Just want to know how it goes. Yes, so the tenant would deliver that to the listing brokerage. So usually what I like to do is once the offer has been accepted, I'll email the tenant and I'll say congratulations, and I'll put in their instructions for the deposit. So they do have to go to the bank, get the bank draft, and then I will say who it needs to be payable to. So again, Global Banker, whatever it is, and then I will specify the address where it needs to be delivered. So yeah, the client is already out there running around, picking up the deposit check. You know, hopefully the listing brokerage is local and they can deliver it. If you want to go above and beyond, I know some agents offer to have the check couriered, or I should say the bank draft couriered, but typically ask the tenant to deliver it to the listing brokerage. That's, I think, the easiest thing to do. Yeah, so in terms of the rest of the agreement, paragraph 5 is what is the property going to be used for? Just state residential. Single family home is fine as well. Paragraph 6 asks, you know, who's going to be paying for what? So just go back to the MLS listing and take a look. You know, is heat included? Is water included? All of that. Typically, everything's going to be the tenant's responsibility, including even the hot water tank rental. So again, give the tenants a heads up about that. Parking, you want to specify if you have a stall number, throw it in there. Otherwise, if it's a detached home and they have a 2-car attached garage, again, just specify it the way it's stated in the MLS listing. You don't want to have a situation where you've rented a property with a 2-car garage and the landlord is using it for storage, right? If it's in the agreement to lease that they have access to that, then you know, if it's stated on the MLS listing, it's stated in the agreement to lease, hopefully that resolves any dispute going forward. So that's the way that should be. Additional terms, obviously Schedule A and B, and then also your residential tenancy agreement. Those are the additional terms to this agreement. And then when it asks you what schedules are being attached, just repeat yourself, Schedule A and B if there is one. And then irrevocability, sometimes they ask for 24 hours irrevocable. So just find out sometimes why that is. If you have a landlord who's, overseas, fine, there's a time difference, but maybe you might want to tighten that up a little bit so that, the listing agent isn't also receiving other offers while they're considering yours, right? So that's how you would fill out all of the paragraphs. So this is kind of a little cheat sheet so you know how to fill those in. And then last but not least here, I'm going to show you, well, not last, but last sort of page, I guess, of the agreement before we get to the Schedule A is the signature page, which as you can see, there are so many signature lines here. So I just want to specify that, your tenant should only be signing under paragraph 21. It's a binding agreement. That's all they sign. And that's what you send to the listing agent. I see often that the tenants have signed both under paragraph 21, and then their agent has also asked them to sign the acknowledgement. So this is acknowledging that they've received an accepted copy of this agreement, and it's premature for them to sign that. So you wouldn't have them sign the acknowledgement until the landlord has also signed and confirmed acceptance. So just keep that in mind. If the landlord accepts, and it's really easy because you've had the tenant sign the agreement, and then the landlord comes right back at you with 3 signatures, right? They also sign paragraph 21, they confirm the acceptance, and they acknowledge receipt of the accepted offer. Again, I don't know why it's necessary to have so many signature lines, but I'm just pointing that out as, your tenant wouldn't need to acknowledge receipt of that until it's actually been accepted. It's not always as clean though. Sometimes the landlord will counter. So you will have had your client sign under paragraph 21, and then maybe the landlord has gone through the agreement and added a whole bunch of stuff to your Schedule A. In that case, the landlord will also simply sign under paragraph 21, but it's up to you, it's up to the tenant to go through the agreement, initial any changes, accept them all, and if it is accepted, then they will be the ones to go ahead and confirm acceptance and sign the acknowledgement, right? So then you send it back to the listing agent and get a copy back with the landlord's acknowledgement as well. So it's kind of a confusing form if it's your first time doing it, but that's why I just kind of wanted to do a little walkthrough of that. Because that is the last page before your Schedule A. So again, Schedule A is auto-populated for you in web forms. Just make sure that you are reading each and every paragraph. So for example, under appliances, I'm not sure what the wording is on the standard form, but if it says, it includes fridge, stove, dishwasher, washer, dryer, and a microwave, just make sure that, there's actually a microwave in the kitchen. Otherwise, you're adding stuff that isn't there, and it could be a dispute later on. So really paying attention to what each paragraph states. I always use this example as well. If you are renting a property with a pool, make sure that you're adding a clause about the pool, who's going to open it, who's going to close it. So, yes, it is auto-populated for you, but walk through it, make sure that, it does accurately reflect the property that you are preparing an offer for. All right. So once everything has been signed, then obviously you can go ahead and send it to Authentisign. That is the platform that you can use for free within web forms. I know it's not everybody's favorite, but it's free. Others, I'm sure, still use DocuSign, whatever it is. But from here, you can go ahead and select the forms that you've already completed, and then simply click on the pen icon, and that sends it to Authentisign. Everybody gets a copy by email. They click through the documents, and then you get an email back with the fully executed forms, at which point you want to download and save somewhere on your computer. I like to have a Zolo folder. Within it, I have buyers, renters, sellers, and then within each folder, I have individual folders with the client's name. So that's where I'm going to save all of my PDFs, and I'm going to replace them. Initially, obviously, you are downloading all of the forms that have just been signed by your client, but you're going to send it to the listing agent, and hopefully you're going to get those signed back by the landlord, and so you can replace those forms in your computer folder so that you can upload them to your checklist, which I'll talk about in a minute. All right. So before we get to jumping ahead and assuming that we have an accepted offer, let's talk about presenting the offer first to the listing agent. So this is an email template again, and this is an example of what you might want to send to the listing agent. So make sure in the subject line, it clearly states offer to lease with the property information, or with the address, I should say, because if you just put the address in there, the listing agent doesn't know if it's a question about the property, is it an offer, what is it? So really make sure that you're highlighting that you are submitting an offer so that the listing agent opens your email, quickly. And then just set out there what it is that you're attaching. So please see attached rental application with supporting documents. Again, that's one PDF. And then lease agreement with attached schedules on behalf of my clients. That's another PDF. So you're attaching both of those things to this email. And then this is where we get to be creative. We get to talk about our client or clients. We can say how wonderful they are, all of their accomplishments, how, you know, great they'll be as tenants. So really take the liberty to talk about them and introduce them sort of virtually. I will say this now, I like having a family photo. I have suggested that in the past. I know other agents have given me feedback that it's worked for them in multiple offers. I just feel like in this virtual reality that we're all in now, it's still nice to have a little bit of, you know, personal information, right? And a picture is worth 1,000 words. So if you have a family photo, or if you don't, ask them for it and include that with your offer, right? And then that way they have a face to the name, right? The landlord is a little bit more, you know, it feels like they know that your client's a little bit better if you attach that, attach a picture. And then of course, you know, they're offering, you may want to highlight here what it is that they're offering just to make it really easy for the listing agent. So the lease date, you know, hopefully, I mean, right now we're sitting at September 1st. If a house is available immediately and they're not looking until October 1st, maybe you suggest, you know, a September 15th possession date, right? So lease date, September 15th, the term is 1 year, the rate is full price or maybe $50 to $100 more. And then the lease deposit, it's up to you if it's first and last month's rent, or if you want to suggest offering a little bit more. So again, letting the listing agent know when the offer expires, and then offering to prepare the residential tenancy agreement. So again, really showing that you're going to be really easy to work with to get this deal done. All right, so I have some questions coming in. So before I go to the next slide, I will answer this. Okay, so does the Zolo not want to keep record of income documents, photo ID, credit bureau, etc.? If they do, when do we submit them? So no, Zolo doesn't keep records of your client's supporting documents. That's something that you'll likely have in your folder saved on your computer. As I mentioned, if you have a Zolo folder with renters, you might have that information in there. I'm not sure how long we're allowed to keep that information. You know, periodically you should probably be deleting those things, but no, you have a record of them for yourself to attach to the rental application to submit to the listing agent. And then, yeah, it's not required by Zolo for you to keep them on hand or for you to send it to Zolo. Is this email sent before we complete the OREA form? Yeah, great question. So no, this is actually attaching the forms that you've already created. So it says right here in the email, please see attached rental application with supporting documents. So you're going to attach that, and you're also going to attach the offer, which will consist of the agreement to lease and the confirmation of co-op. So you're presenting the offer with this email. Oftentimes it's done by email. Very rarely will you do an offer to lease in person. Do we need a DocuSign subscription, or AuthentiSign has an inbuilt feature to have the document signed by the clients before we send the offer? Yeah, so AuthentiSign is available for free within web forms, and all you have to do is simply click on the documents that you want to send. So I'll show you a screenshot of that in a second, but basically each document will have a little circle next to it, which you can go ahead and click on, and then up at the top there's a basket. So if you click on the basket, it'll come up with all of the documents that you selected, and then there's a pen up at the top that you click on, and that sends it to AuthentiSign. So from there, you would just follow the instructions and basically enter in your client's name, email address, you know, drag and drop where they need to sign, and then it gets sent to your client to click through. So hopefully that answers your question. I will show you a screenshot of that. So another question, after showing the property to the client, can we call or email a listing agent and check whether my client qualifies or not before we email them offer to lease? Yes, absolutely. So there's a couple of opportunities to contact the listing agent. So you might want to contact the listing agent right after that initial phone call, right? Again, let's use the example of them you know, being newcomers to Canada. So if they don't have employment history, if they don't have credit history here, you know, before even taking them out to show them that property, you may want to ask the listing agent if that's something that the landlord would consider. Whether or not you took that step, definitely before you go ahead and prepare, you know, the offer to lease and you take this time to do that, yeah, check in with the listing agent again and just say, this is the situation, you know, is that something the landlord is going to consider? And then, you know, proceed, you know, if they do say that that's going to be okay. So definitely checking in with the listing agent at least a couple of times just to know that, you know, at least the landlord is going to be considering them, right? You never know if another offer is going to come in better, but at least you stand a chance. So definitely reach out to the listing agent. Awesome. All right, so let's talk about winning these deals. So obviously these objections here, I keep saying obviously today, I don't know why, but objections, these are not objections that you should be encountering. Single income, you've already asked them for all of their different sources of income. Not enough income, or low credit score, you ask that on the very first phone call, so you know that your clients have enough income to support the rent. Their credit score is not below 650, so those are not going to be objections. And then not enough stability, that's again talking about newcomers. You've already contacted the listing agent and you have asked them, if newcomers are going to be something that the landlord will consider, right? So these are not going to be objections because you already dealt with it as early as the initial phone call. You certainly dealt with it at the time of receiving their documents, and you've called the listing agent to make sure that they're going to consider, whatever situation your clients are in. So hopefully these are not objections that you receive. So in order to win the deal, I did already mention presenting the offer with a family photo. You also want to make sure that the listing agent has received your offer. So making sure that you either call the listing agent to confirm receipt or maybe call the brokerage and register your offer, which basically means the brokerage will then let the listing agent know that they've received an offer on their listing. So whichever way you want to do it, just make sure that they have received the offer. And then some suggestions here, which we already discussed, maybe offering more rent, $50 to $100 more, offering more of a deposit, so first and last 5 months, or then offering an earlier start date if the property is available now and your clients aren't available until the first of the following month. Maybe you can meet in the middle, right? So there are some ideas to win the deal. So once you do have it accepted, at this point, you're going to prepare that residential tenancy agreement. And this is what it looks like. It's a long 14-page document. So it's not something that you want to be preparing at the very beginning for all of your offers. You want to make sure that the offer has been accepted, and then you can go ahead and enter in all of this information. Again, really the point of this is for your client and the landlord to exchange information. And then if there is ever a dispute, the first 7 pages reiterate the accepted terms of the agreement to lease, but then the remaining 7 pages go over, rules and responsibilities for the tenant and the landlord. So again, if there's a dispute, they can refer to this residential tenancy agreement and see who's right.
Sorry, who am I speaking to?
Super important to have this done before they move in. So after the offer gets accepted,
when would you like to view them?
This needs to be completed. All right. So you have an accepted offer, you've prepared the residential tenancy agreement, your clients are happy, amazing. So you're not quite done. There's a couple of things to make sure gets done, right? So the deposit check definitely needs to be delivered to the listing brokerage. And as I mentioned before, just ask your client to go to the bank, get a bank draft, give them instructions
because I
on
am involved in the morning
to
with other
remind them of the amount, give them the address that it needs to be delivered to. They're delivering it properly. Make sure you get a receipt. So hopefully they'll send you a picture of the receipt. If not, no worries,
just
call
send
the
me a
brokerage
text
and ask them to send it to you.
I'm not at my desk right now.
And then once that's done, you have a firm offer. So you want to upload your documents to web forms. You want to update your CRM. So that's required for the deals department. So really important. And I'll show you screenshots of that. And then before they move in, let's say a week or two, depending on how much time you have, remind your clients to transfer utilities into their name, get tenants insurance, post-dated checks. I know nobody has checks, but landlords still, for some reason, like checks. So if that's in the agreement, definitely make sure that that gets done. And then you're meeting with the landlord and the client on or before the occupancy date to maybe conduct a walkthrough, note any deficiencies. But certainly the idea here is to exchange keys and post-dated checks. So making sure that all goes smoothly, and then it's a done deal. So of course, you want to be checking in with them in a month to see how things are going, and then definitely, every 6 months to 12 months just to see where they're at, and hopefully they do convert to a buyer for you. But let me just quickly go over the web form section here. So I do want to just let you know that anytime you create an offer, the status is always defaulted to open. So you do want to change that once you do have an accepted offer. You want to change it to firm deal, and that's when you are ready to submit this to the deals department. So in order to be ready, you need to upload all of your accepted documents to web form. So you'll see here that we are in the client's transaction, and you see this sidebar over here. There's something called checklist. So that's where you're going to upload all of your documents. So again, hopefully you've saved it in a folder on your computer. It's all very organized, and you can easily go in there and submit your documents to the deals department by clicking on the checklist, and this will auto-populate for you. So this is a list of all of the documents that the deals department will want to see for this particular transaction, and so you can simply go ahead, click on attach, and upload it from wherever it is that you saved it on your computer. So once that's done, the deals department literally gives you a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If it's a thumbs down, it probably just means you're missing a signature, or maybe you uploaded, a previous version when you guys were going back and forth. But then, once you have the thumbs up, then everything is in order and your payment will be processed on time. So that's what you need to do before changing that status to firm. All right, last but not least, don't forget about the CRM. Go into the CRM, update your deal. Even though you're working with the tenant, you're still on the buying side. And then if it is a firm offer, you'll see this page here that just asks for more information, which you can go ahead and enter the address, the MLS number, what the offer is or was, the initial offer, what your gross commission value is. Make sure you're putting that in a dollar amount. And then whatever the final offer was, if it's different or the same, enter it again. When it was accepted, when it closes, and then subjects removed. Does that mean conditions? Are conditions removed? So in other words, is it firm? And then any notes you want to enter, and then is it an agent lead, yes or no, or is it a Zolo lead? So click on submit, and again, that submits it to the deals department, and and they'll be able to process your commission once that comes in. All right, let me see some questions coming in here. After showing the property to the client, can we call her the listing agent? Oh, I just answered that. Okay, perfect. What if the client is not signing the document? Can I select the option as closed? Yeah, so there are different options. So I'll just go back up to that screen here. So yes, it defaults to open, but there are different statuses that you can select from. So open is the default, but yeah, if they don't sign it, you could say, I would probably say withdrawn. They didn't sign it. Expired, I would say, is if you did prepare it, you submitted it, it was irrevocable until today at 5 and you never got a response, that would be expired. If you were in multiple offers and, yours wasn't the chosen one, then that's an example of a failed offer. So yeah, just select whatever is appropriate there. But really the most important ones that the deals department is going to want to see is firm deal. So you either go from open to failed or firm deal would really be the suggestion. And that's actually similar to the CRM, right? Deal, you want to either be in an opening status or firmed up or failed. So making sure you're just updating that accordingly. All right, awesome. Okay, wow, right on time. So if you guys have any other questions, let me know. Let me just jump to that page. And the workplace channel is, the workplace group, I should say, is always available to you. There's a Leases channel in there that you can definitely ask questions. If there is a situation that you're not sure about how to handle, post that in the workplace group. Ronnie, of course, is available to you as well. He is the growth manager for most new agents. So if he's your growth manager, reach out to him with any questions, or your own growth manager as needed. But definitely use the workplace group for any guidance. So awesome. Thanks, you guys. Let me see. Okay, one more question here. Sometimes leads reply that they are not working with any agent. After a while, they admit that they like the house, which was shown by another agent, and would like to put in the offer. How to handle that kind of situation? Yeah, actually, that's a great comment. So that is definitely something you want to be asking as part of your pre-qualifying questions, whether or not they're working with an agent, right? And I like to really specify if not just are they working with another agent or have they met another agent. It's very likely that yes, they have gone on another showing with another agent before, but I think it's really important to know if they're committed in writing to working with another agent. So maybe asking the question that way. And if they say, no, yes, we did see another property. We didn't submit an offer with them though. We haven't signed anything. Then okay, fine. So you're good to move forward and help them out. But yeah, you don't want to be stepping on another agent's toes if they already have a signed agreement in place. And yeah, find out about that during the initial phone call for sure. so that, yeah, you're not running around with somebody who's going to work with somebody else. All right. Awesome. So hopefully that answered your question. And if there's anything else, definitely feel free to chat with me in the workplace group. I'm there. I check it out all the time. Otherwise, we'll just see you on the next webinar. Let me just see. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day. Talk soon. Bye-bye.